success to you in all you do, all you have done, and for what is yet to come.
Thank you.
Anyone who has the pleasure of being this close to you, they can't deny how palpable your confidence is.
Wow.
Does your confidence come from clarity?
I believe that my confidence comes from God, what some would call God anyway. Whether you want to call it God or universe or Allah or Jesus or whatever. But for me, it comes from the messages, the signs, the symbols. It comes from the gift that I have with clairaudience, the things that I've seen in the spiritual realm about me, right? So, like, for example, way before I was even calling myself Black Fire, when I was still what some would call a Christian, I was falling asleep. You know how you like in between that realm of you sleep but you not sleep?
Right.
And I heard the phrase, your mission was always to protect women. And I didn't know what that meant. Because remember, this is way before I was Black Fire and all that stuff.
Right.
But I always remembered it. I always remembered what I heard, you know. And then I would have dreams just telling me that, you know, you have permission. Like one of my dreams was, Ra said you have permission to go teach. Ra, like the sun.
Right, the sun god,
Yeah,
Ra.
the sun god, Ra. And
Wow.
I woke up like, okay. Then there was another dream I had where somebody said, go preach and teach about Jesus.
Okay, let's go back a little bit because you said clairaudience. What
Yeah.
exactly is that?
Okay,
For
so
those who might not know.
So there's a lot of clairs, right? There's clairvoyance, there's clair, I think, sentience. I can't remember all of them, but clairaudience is being able to hear beyond like the physical realm, basically. It's like hearing like a little whisper in your ear, but it's obviously not you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Now, Black Fire, how did you come across that name?
Oh, well, going back to my gift, let me take a sip of this.
I'll join you.
This might get deep. No, I'm joking. Going back to my gift of being able to hear, right? When I started like really studying words, which became my whole everything, my passion is centered around that. But when I started studying words, I realized that the word black is kemet in the Egyptian language? Or the word kemet means black. So that's in the beginning of my name.
Kim.
Right. Or I also call myself a Cometian because my name is Cometian.
Right.
I'm literally a Cometian. That's how I know that I have ties to Egypt.
Okay, I love it.
So, but the first part of my name, the Kim part means black, and then the Isha part in my name in Hebrew is fire. And then when I put that together, and I was like, oh, that's fire. You know what I mean? Like, that was just such a cool name. But when I really started thinking about what it really meant, like metaphysically, it made sense in regards to where my confidence came from and my gift. Because black really is the darkness of the subconscious, the darkness of the universe, the mother aspect of God. And then fire is the masculine. It's the seen. It's the sun, right? It's the confidence,
That's right.
Well, they're both confident in different ways. But yeah, so when I looked at, the black and the fire, I was like, oh, this is telling me that my gift or what I'm here to learn and what I'm here to teach is to have that balance between both of them.
Okay. So what you just did there, that was word magic?
That was word magic, yeah.
Okay.
Being able to put things together like that. And even you asked again about my confidence.
Right.
I had another dream. I had so many dreams. I had another dream that told me to look up black fire in the Bible. Somebody was like, look up black fire in the Bible. So I'm like, black fire is not in the Bible. Well, surely I Googled the words black fire in the Bible and something came up about from how the Hebrews or the Jewish people rather, the Jewish people. It has something to do with how they read the Bible and the words behind the words. It has something to do with like basically reading in between the lines.
Right.
It was like a way to read the Bible. I was blown away by that. You know what I mean? That was like another confirmation that my name is Black Fire, but it's still tied to me understanding the Bible.
Right, right.
So where I get my confidence from, I just have gotten so many confirmations. What I do, what I teach, other people have came to me that dreams that I was in their dream and I crowned them, and just it's just all kind of stuff. So
And I think another part of it is just that since you know what you're here to do, you can't help but be confident.
Right.
Because your path is laid out.
Yep. And even sometimes when I first started out breaking down words and stuff and doing word magic, which is like moving the letters around. And by moving them around, I don't mean just moving them from one place to another. I mean literally flipping a M into a W, into a E, flipping a N into a U, and making a whole nother word, right? When I first started doing that, in my old YouTube videos, you will see people cursing me out in those comments. People was coming at me hard, like, you can't do that, you can't, that's not a real language, and da-da-da-da. And there was nights when I used to really feel like, why was I giving this gift if people was gonna like not accept it?
They accept it. But you know what, since we're on this topic, we're gonna touch on it because you are very influential.
Okay.
See, you're one of my favorites. You know, you're one of my go-tos on social media.
Oh, really?
But I can't help but notice that you are clearly some other people's favorites, whether they like you or not. You know, you could just see the influence that you have on others.
Yeah.
And then just to say, simply put, you do have some copycats. But how do you feel about that?
I'm glad you said it and not me.
How do you feel about that when you see some of your work verbatim, but no acknowledgement? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great question. When I first started seeing that, it would bother me. You know, I would feel like, can I just be me, like by myself? You know? But then I started thinking about it like, number one, if you have this idea that you're going to help all of these people and you're going to be well known, first of all, you have to get used to people copying you. That's number one, because I thought of it like Beyonce, right? So at like Coachella, there were people in the crowd that had on Beyonce's outfit, the same exact thing she was wearing.
Good example, great.
Do you think Beyonce cared that somebody was copying her?
Nope.
And so I had to look at it like, you really gonna be bothered by that? Like, that just means that you really are influencing and inspiring people, whether they want to admit it or not. And then the other part of it is wanting that acknowledgement. We both know that, or we all know that it's really ego-based.
Right.
You know? And that's okay, because we all got that ego. And I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't feel like, you know, you couldn't have tagged me. And sometimes people do. But what helped me get over it is just realizing that if I really do believe in my gift, and I really do believe what I seen in my dreams, like me being well known and stuff like that, I can't get caught up in it. You know? So I do. And also the other thing is that you can't say that you want to inspire people and then get mad when they get inspired.
You're right about that.
You can't say that you want to influence people and then get mad when they get influenced. Either you're here to help them see themselves or learn themselves or whatever, or not. Like, you can't play both sides of the fence. So.
That's it. You said it best. I like that. Can you share your weakness? Do you have a weakness?
Of course.
You do. It's interesting to me. I mean, but can you share it? What is your biggest weakness?
Yeah. Well, this is something that I acknowledge all the time, especially in social media, is my fear of abandonment. I definitely have some codependent traits, and I'm aware of them. When I get triggered, I may not be fully aware of it, but it's usually afterwards when I self-reflect, I'm like, okay, you know where that really came from.
Quite naturally.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, because I still have what some would call mommy daddy issues. I think we all do. We all gonna be honest with ourselves. Some of us are. I always say that I'm healing, right? I try to never say I'm healed or I'm beyond that. And the reason why is because I know that I'm one trigger away from that fear of abandonment popping up. You know, I know that it's lurking somewhere, just waiting to be like, see, you haven't really healed that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how the universe do though. Like it will show you that like you still got some work to do. You know, but yeah, I would say that that I still have some issues with, you know, my mom and dad leaving me, even though I had forgiven them. But like I said, the trigger is still kind of lurking in the background, waiting for opportunities to show you whether you have or have not healed from those things. So I would say that's definitely one of my weaknesses.
I just heard you mention forgiving, and I think that's one of mine, because I do have a problem with forgiving people sometimes. I don't want to do it. I feel like it's a weakness, and I feel like I'm being too weak when I forgive people.
Yeah.
But I know that you got to move on sometimes.
Yeah.
I just don't like acting like I'm forgetting what has been done to me. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget. Definitely not. And I think also that kind of ties into me having a problem with forgiveness. Do you have any advice for me about forgiveness, or any good word about forgiveness for me?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, I do talk about forgiveness in the Self-Realization of a Goddess interactive journal. But before I'm going to read something from the book that I wrote in there. But before I read that, I just want to talk about forgiveness a little bit. And the reason why is because I think that a lot of people misunderstand what it really means to forgive. It doesn't necessarily mean that now you're weak, because it doesn't mean that like you're letting someone get away with something.
Right.
You know? First of all, we have to think about it spiritually, what's really happening. And what's happening spiritually is that what you're doing is you're holding someone in a prison, right? In the Self-Realization of a Goddess course, I teach how are you doing that? But if you can look at it like you're holding someone else in a prison, if you're holding them in a prison, doesn't that mean you're there too?
Indeed.
You see, so, and what happens is, spiritually, if you believe in reincarnation, and I do, right? I teach that in the course. Because you held on to that, and because you held them in the prison, when you reincarnate, you start that story right back over again, because you never let it go.
Right.
And the universe operates on the law of love. That's another thing that people misunderstand. Because love means that you kept giving it your attention. Well, then you must love it then, right? You keep telling that story, then you must love it then. Let's keep the camera rolling. That's how the universe works. The universe will be like, oh, this is the story that you love and you want to keep creating? Let's keep creating that story then.
Right.
The same story where you got beat. The same story where you got raped. The same story where you got molested. The same story where your mom left you, or this and that and the other. You keep telling it. Okay, let's keep telling it then, right? But in the Self-Realization of a Goddess, the journal, the interactive journal, I do have a small piece in here where I talk about my parents. My parents were drug addicts. They're completely clean now, over 30 years. Let me
Congratulations.
Can we toast to that?
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations to them. This is a beautiful book, by the way.
It is. Oh, thank you.
Hold it up. Look at that.
Yes, very small, could fit right in your little
Beautiful.
your little handbook, your little pocketbook. I mean, it's a handbook. But I tell the part in the story about how when I came to the realization that I needed to forgive my parents, and this was like well into my 30s, because they were both drug addicts. And long story short, they left me at my grandmother's house and didn't really come back until I was like in my teens. But in the book I wrote, it was at this precise point that I started to realize that people love you in the best way they know how. Here's where I started to forgive. Forgiveness requires changing perspective, which is extremely hard to do when you have been telling yourself the same old story year after year. Repetition creates a strong muscle, and it is the same with the mind. If we keep a story going, it lives. But one small shift and you can bring yourself to total peace. All you have to do is change your mind. So forgiveness is not for the other person to do. It's for you to change your mind. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to completely ignore and forget what they did. But if you can switch your perspective on what they did and switch your perspective to maybe something was going on in their life that didn't even have anything to do with you. And that's the reason why they did what they did.
Right.
It's not excusing them, but it's having compassion and mercy.
That was so well stated.
Oh, thank you.
And so eloquently written.
I'm telling you that when I started thinking about like how I changed my perspective was I started telling myself that my mother and father were sick. It's a sickness. Mm-hmm. And because they didn't want to damage me any further, they left me at my grandmother's house. Instead of keep saying that they abandoned me, mm-hmm. They left me at a safe place.
Right, right.
So you asked for advice, right? I would encourage you to try to find a way to change the story, whereas though you can see it from maybe their perspective on why they may have did whatever they did, because they're already hurt, they're already damaged. Hurt people, right? If you can figure out a way in your mind to do that, that can help you come to a place of peace, hopefully.
So I don't get to hurt them.
No, you don't get to hurt them.
No, I'll tell you. But, so basically, forgiveness is paying ransom to get yourself free.
Ooh, I like how you worded that.
So
absolutely.
Pay the ransom of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. That's what the whole story of Jesus was really about. Yes.
Can you explain like concisely? Because I know it's a lot, but could you just elaborate?
Oh yeah, man, it's definitely a lot. Because I ain't your average preacher, right?
Right.
Because I am Reverend Black Fire, right?
Right. Right. I know this.
This is the stuff that a lot of the mainstream preachers, and they know the truth, they're not gonna tell you. But the story of Jesus is really about karmic debt. It's really about relieving yourself from karmic debt. That is why the greatest gift that he gave the world was what? Forgiveness of sins.
Right.
It's the karmic debt, meaning that when you forgive, because even the Bible says, forgive me because I don't know the scriptures like right off the top of my head, but even the Bible says forgive your debtors and God will forgive you, right? So it's basically saying that like if you forgive your brother, because that's what it is, it's your brother or sister or whatever on earth, then you get yourself out of the prison. That's really what that scripture is saying. Like when you forgive somebody else, you get yourself out. But that's the same thing that so-called, what we call Jesus did. And he was supposed to be the example, right? If Jesus was supposed to be the example, even if he was or wasn't a real character.
Right.
If his example was to forgive sins and to forgive debt, then should we copy that?
I agree, we should.
Yeah.
Right.
It's difficult though, I understand. It can be difficult. Depending on the nature of the quote unquote crime, it can be difficult.
But I'll work on it. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Take a sip of this before I get into this next part.
Okay, let's both take a sip.
I probably need it more than you. Because I need an explanation.
Funny.
I need to know. Can you this I don't have a problem with it, I agree. Because I understand. But like just look at this now.
Yes.
Can you break this down?
I can.
Explain, just give me the origins of it.
Okay.
And where we're going with this.
Well, I'm glad you first let me know that, you ain't got a problem with it.
I don't at all. I don't at all.
You know what? What's interesting is, speaking of the origin of it, when I did first roll it out, a lot of men supported it. A lot. Now, there were some who were like, first of all, if you did get triggered by it, the first thing I would ask you is, am I talking to you? Because the only way you would be triggered by it is if you identify yourself
Right,
as a
get
boy.
the hit dog holler.
Right. That's the epitome of a hit dog hollering. If you are offended at that.
Right.
Because that means you must identify yourself as a boy, right? But a lot of men, they supported it. It was the women who were giving me a hard time about it. And I couldn't believe it. I was just in shock about how many women were just like, we could do what we want. And I'm like, yeah, you can.
But you're trying to help them.
I don't know if they saw it that way. They saw it like controlling or something. I'm not even going to make up what I think, how they saw it. I just know that when I first started it off, my first Blog Talk Radio, I had partnered with somebody in the beginning of it. And it had gotten a lot of traction, but a lot of women that did show up to listen to it, they only showed up to listen to it to talk trash about it. And I just thought that was so odd, right? Now, because there was so much, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, to be against. I don't know. I can't think of a word right now. But because there was so much opposition.
Right, you had some antagonists.
Yes, I definitely had antagonists. And it was mainly women. I was like, they need a class or something. So they could really understand that what I'm telling them is, you are powerful. That you are powerful enough to say no P for boys. That you are powerful enough to say that I'm only going to share myself with a mature grown man. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with making that choice.
Nothing at all.
As a matter of fact, that's what makes you a woman. That's what makes you a woman.
Right.
By how you're choosing. Let me give the preface that I ain't always been the best at choosing myself, okay? But that's how I learned, So there is a section in the Self-Realization of a Goddess course and the book that talks about that shirt. And how it came along, and how before there was the course, there was the shirt. So it started off with, the shirt, and then me seeing that women didn't quite understand. They didn't really connect the dots to their power of choice. And so I was talking to another Facebook friend, and they were like, you should put a course together. You should put like a class together, because you should put a class together about going from the self-victimization to the self-realization. And I was like, yeah.
And that's where it became.
That's where the aha moment became.
Your epiphany.
I knew it was necessary. Now, what added on to that was my father, right? I was having a conversation with my father about accountability. Because mind you, my father also teaches, he's a deacon of what at the church they call it the freedom ministry, and it helps drug addicts, right? And they go by the 12-step program. And so when I was talking to my dad about accountability, he was like, oh yeah, that's part 4 in the 12-step program about being accountable and self-reflecting and da-da-da. And he was like, you should get this book. I forget the name of the book, I'm sorry. But it's like the 12 steps, but it's for Christians. So I ordered the book, and when I read it, I was like, I'm gonna do a course just like this for women. And I'm gonna make it in 12 steps. And I literally sat down and looked at my own personal journal and looked for turning points. Like I literally read like all of my journals and I looked for where did I really start to change? Because at one point I was hurt, mad, angry at men. Sometimes I still can be.
I understand.
So when I went and looked at my journal, I found certain points where I saw that, I changed. That's where I changed my mind at. Like, for example, when I started understanding the power of words and the power of, well, if you keep saying that all men ain't ish,
Guess
then
what?
you created it.
You're gonna run into that constantly.
Right? So that became step 3 of the Self-Realization of a Goddess course. How words cast spells.
Right. Spelling.
Yeah.
Okay. Cursive.
Curse. You got it.
That's right.
Yep.
You know, did I mention I was a fan of your work?
I think you did.
Oh, okay. Just
Thank
making
you.
sure.
You're a writer too. Anyway,
That's right. Well, see, oddly enough, when I saw this shirt is how I found you.
Okay, I
was on the internet and I was like, what is that? And I looked at it and I was like, oh no, they didn't. But it makes sense. And then that's when I saw about your name interpretations and everything else you do. And as a writer, it does impact me. I try to get the knowledge from anywhere I can.
Yeah.
And you offer so much, and I thank you for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what's up.
Spring or fall?
Spring.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Me too. What would you like to change about yourself?
Oh, goodness. My confidence?
You need more?
I know you always say that.
You need more? Okay.
So you need more.
What is your best dish? What do you cook best?
Shrimp Alfredo?
Sure sound good. What is love?
To me, love is truth.
I agree.
I always round it up to that one word, truth.
Truth. I like that. What is the key to balance?
Self-accountability.
Perfect. Is there a movie, book, or a song that you can give the title of that has made a profound impact on you?
There's a movie called is it called Antoine Fisher?
With Denzel and the,
Yeah.
can't think of the other guy's name. I know what you're talking about.
I forget the name of the movie. I think it is called Antoine
It is
Fisher.
Antoine Fisher.
But that movie, yeah, you said to make it concise. It's so relatable to my life. It's so relatable. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's like his mom left him, and he was basically like jacked up for years after that. But it's so relatable for me, and it because I know what happens when people have addictions. That's what makes me want to help people. That's what drives me to want to help people. Not just with people with addictions, but just when you have all types of issues growing up. Long story short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a word that comes to your mind when I say marriage.
Oh, goodness. Oh, you want me to be honest?
Was that your answer? My goodness.
Ooh, okay. Freedom.
I didn't expect that one.
Me either.
All right. I remember back, a few months ago, everybody was expecting to get some superpowers.
Yeah.
Well, if you did get a superpower, what would it be and how would you use it?
Oh, man. I like the superpower of being invisible.
What would you do with that?
Well, I think being invisible keeps you humble. Everybody wants to be seen, right? It's like that's usually what drives us. But you asked, what would I do with it?
I guess I wouldn't know because I wouldn't be able to see you.
That's the whole thing. Like, being invisible, if I can get into it just a little bit, being invisible is what the power of what we would call the Holy Spirit is, right? Because spirit means breath,
Right.
which is invisible. It's having the humility to not mind being in the back. to not mind being unseen. But that's when you get like from what we call God, that's when you get to be seen.
Right.
That's when God be like, I'm gonna put you on the front since you was okay with being in the back. Like to me, that is a superpower in itself.
Right.
And it takes a lot of mastery of self to be okay with not always being at the forefront of everything. I'm not sure how I would use that though. But to me, it's a great teacher of humility. I'll just say it like that. I try to have a good balance between humility and confidence, if you haven't noticed that.
Oh, I noticed.
I try.
I feel a little ashamed because if I was invisible, I'd probably just make a trip to the bank. I mean, hey, you
yeah.
want to be spiritual? I do need some work done on me. I'm
You
sorry.
know what?
Okay, I need some work done on me. 2 more questions.
Okay.
1, what is the best advice that you've been given?
You know what? When my stepmother, this is the first thing that popped into my head. When my stepmother, before she passed, God bless her soul, safe travels. She told me to always do what you want to do for you. And it was just so simple, you know? But when I really thought about how profound it is, the reason why it's so profound is because when you don't always do what you want to do for you, you usually have regrets. And you usually feel, then you start thinking that people owe you things, or you might do things out of guilt or shame, you know what I mean? But when you always do what you want to do for you, it's not being selfish. Sometimes people think that that's being selfish. I guess it could be depending on the circumstance, but it's making sure that you have peace of mind with what you're doing. If you're doing things that you don't really want to do and you don't have peace with it, you're gonna make yourself sick like that. So I feel like my stepmom, that was one of the last things she said to me. Always do what you want to do for you. Yeah.
Okay. This is the last question.
Last question. All right. Let me take a seat. Go ahead.
What is the best advice that you can give?
Just to anybody or specifically?
A final message, like if this were the last time you were going to speak before you go into some silence, a period of silence.
Wow.
What do you want to leave people with?
I want to remind people that being accountable for your reactions and responses to things is your superpower. When you accept that how you react and how you respond, you're recreating things, right? So, of course, when it comes to being self-accountable, we can shy away from it depending on the circumstance, but. And I'm not saying that I always do it to perfection, but what I've realized in my life is that is where you have the most power at. That is where you take the power away from the so-called devil. And you don't allow the so-called devil to say, oh, well, you did it because of me. Oh, well, so though that means that I must be more powerful than you then. Right? So that's how you take another person's sword away from them. By you being accountable for yourself. So if I was to give somebody advice, I would just ask, or not ask, I would just suggest that they be as self-accountable as possible. And they realize and accept that everything that's happening in their life and has happened in their life, they have created it in some form or fashion. And that's okay.
That was beautiful. Don't be afraid of your shadow.
Don't be afraid of your shadow.
You're the one that controls it. You're the one that makes it.
Yes. Everything that's hidden in that dark part, it didn't just show up out of nowhere.
Right.
You know? Absolutely, yeah.
Kamisha, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
This was such an honor.